Welcome to Flash CS6 tutorial request 75 symbols. Because someone's asking me to do a tutorial on symbols, it means they don't know a whole lot about Flash, so therefore this is going to be a beginner's tutorial. I'm going to start off with a new FLA. This is the default FLA, and over here is something called the drawing tools, and I'm going to click on the pencil, and down here at the bottom there's two little boxes. If you look at this one and I click on it, it gets bigger and darker around the outside. Click on it, it gets smaller. I want it to be small, and if I click the corner of this one, I want smooth to be selected. And I'm going to come up here, this is called the stage, and draw a crazy circle. Going to pick up my selection tool and highlight that circle. This is called the timeline down here, and I'm going to go up to frame 35, right click and insert a keyframe. When I do that, that makes all these frames now contain this circle. I'm on the last frame, I click on it. I'm going to, with my selection tool again, highlight it, it already is, get what I call as a crosshairs and just drag it over like that. And you'll see that I come down here, get on that timeline, and do what's called a classic tween. So now we have this taking place. See that? It's going back and forth. So if I tested it, it would go back like that. Control. This is how you test a movie. Control, test movie, test, and it's going across, and it'll start over and over and over. So now I'm going to click here, all in one motion, click it all, right click, copy frames, click here, right after this new one, right click, paste frames. Now I'm going to click off the side, I'm going to click here, all in one motion, go from here to here, right click, and I'm going to reverse those frames. So now if I use my, what's this called, the playhead, you can see it's going to go back and forwards and back and forwards. So let's test this out, test movie, test. And it's going to go back and forwards and back and forwards. So now if I open up, click on one of these where you see the black spot, and this is called the properties panel. Right there there's a couple of arrows. I click and it expands the properties panel. I got my selection tool, and I'm going to highlight this, and it says it's calling it a graphic. Okay, it's calling it a graphic. It turned it into a graphic for me when I did these tweenings. Let's lock this layer for a minute. Lock it. Call this circle, C-I-R-C, just to give it a name. Come down here, it looks like an envelope. Click on it, new layer. Call this one rectangle, R-E-C. And select frame 1 again. Take my pencil tool again and draw something that looks like a rectangle. Down, over, up, and over. That's good enough. Pick up your selection tool and highlight it. And see, it just calls that a shape. But as soon as I turn it into the tween, as I did this one, like here, oops, if I unlock that layer and look at this one, it turned it into a graphic. And a graphic is indeed a type of a symbol. You can't tween a shape. If I try to tween this here, as soon as I do, for example, let's say I wanted to bring it up to here. So I'm going to insert a keyframe. I'm going to click here, drag it in one motion. I'm going to delete these frames, cut frames or delete frames, doesn't matter. Cut frames. And select on this one again, that's this square. Now if I take that and get my crosshairs and move it over, and if I expand my properties panel, it's still a shape. But if I come in here and click somewhere here and say create a classic tween, Now it can move, and if I checked it now, get on one of these keyframes and check it, it turned it into a graphic. So you need to turn something into a symbol before you can tween it. That's an easy one to remember. Now, let's look at this for a minute. What's going to happen is the playhead's going to start here when I test my movie. It's going to run to here. And then all of a sudden, at this point here, this one here is still going this way, the rectangle. My circle's now going to start to go back. But when I get to here, my rectangle is going to disappear. So if I didn't want the rectangle to disappear, I can't use this format. They would have to be in sync because the playhead will run all the way to here, then jump back to here. From here, it goes all the way through here, and as soon as it gets here, it jumps back. So let's see that. Control, test movie, test. Now this is going to disappear. See that? This is disappearing, and that's that time here. So to prevent things like this from happening, we use what's called movie clips. So now, let's come down here, and I'm just going to delete this layer. I'm going to delete this layer. That deletes everything. Now I have a layer 1, and I'm right back to basically where I started. So now this time, let's pick up the pencil tool again. Let's draw a circle. There it is there. Pick up the selection tool, highlight it, modify, convert it to a symbol. I could pick graphic if I want. We just seen how the graphic worked. This would be another way of making a graphic, but I'm going to select movie clip this time. I'm going to call it ball or circle, CIR, shift _. I give all my movie clips this MC, so when I'm writing code, I recognize it as being a movie clip. So now it has a name. It's a movie clip. And you see this goes around it. That tells me now that it's something special. If I open the Properties panel, it is now a movie clip, and it has an instance name of circ _MC. And it's sitting right there. Now, here's where there's something special. If I highlight it, get the crosshairs, and double click on it. Click, click, right fast. Now, I am inside the movie clip. What does that mean? That this is a different timeline. How do I know that? If I look up here, it says I'm working with scene 1, but I'm inside of a movie clip. That's the symbol for a movie clip called circle movie clip. Click scene 1 again. So on scene 1, on frame 1, I have this. I'm going to lock it. I have this circle. Okay. If I unlock it and double click, unlock it, double click, I am now in that movie clip. This is a whole new timeline. So now, inside this timeline, let's move this circle. Let's go up to about 35 frames and insert a keyframe. Like that. Let's drag it over to here, like we did before. Come down here, right-click, create a classic tween. There's my classic tween. And you're saying, well, that's the same thing. No, you're going to see something different. Click here, all in one motion. Copy that. Copy frames. Click here, right-click, paste frames. Click off to the side. Get all these highlighted, right-click, reverse frames. So now we have that going back for its motion. And if I went back to the main scene, main timeline, that's right there. And there's that movie clip right there. So now let's test it. Control, test movie, test. And there's that circle going back and forth. And it's only standing still on the main timeline. Now let's do another layer. Insert another layer here. Click on that. Let's call this one circ, C-I-R. And let's call this new one rec, R-E-C, select it, pick up my pencil tool again, draw the rectangle. All right. Pick up selection tool, highlight it, modify, convert it to a symbol, make sure movie clip is selected, call it rec, R-E-C, shift underscore MC, double click on it. Now we're inside this new movie clip, and we're going to do what we did before. We're going to take it up to about frame 50. Actually, let's take it to frame 25, insert a keyframe, drag it up to here, right click, create a classic tween, and now if I look at this, I can go back and forth, and notice here that the circle isn't moving because it's on its own timeline. Now I'm going to lock this, I'm going to go back to scene 1. Now on scene 1 here I have 2 layers. On one layer I have the rectangle, and on the other layer I have a circle. Control test movie test, and you can see that this goes back and forth, and this is just going up and starting over, and I don't have any time when there's actually nothing on the screen because they're both on their own individual timelines. Okay, now let's try another symbol. Let's try a button. Button, something that you click on, and when you click, something happens. I'm going to start by selecting what's called the rectangle tool. Now right here is a rectangle. You may see an oval like this. Either way, you press this little corner here and you'll see a list. I want a rectangle. So rectangle tool, pick up your selection tool. We have all the layers locked. Insert a layer and call this rec, R-E-C, and then I'm going to say BTN, so I'll know this is the button. And right here, click and drag, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Oops, excuse me. Pick up my rectangle tool, come down here where the pencil is, click on the pencil. I don't want any stroke, so I want nothing around the outside of my button, so click here. And I'm going to make my button red. So click on it and select red. Come over here and make a rectangle. So now I'm just going to delete that for a minute. Control Z. If you wanted a square, you hold the shift down, click and drag, and you'll get a square. But I want a rectangle, so I'm going to drag it across, make a rectangle. Pick up my selection tool, going to highlight it. It's all fuzzy. Come up here, modify, convert it to a symbol. Make sure button is selected. And I'm going to call this REC, rec, underscore BTN, as in rec button. Now it has a name. If I open the properties panel here, and it's selected, which it is rec button. Now, like the movie clip, if I double click on it, I now am inside the rec button button, and it has a different timeline. You see how it has this up, over, and down and hit? So there's what it looks like when it's up. So if I come here, right click, insert a keyframe. Let's have it that when I scan over it, it gets slightly bigger. So if I come over here, click on this, what's called free transform tool. You may look in this corner right here and click this corner to see the menu. There's something called the gradient tool. I want the free transform tool. And that allows me to, if I pull it up here, it's going to get higher that way, wider that way, and wider that way. So if I go back and forth, see I have two sizes. So now when I scroll over my button, it's going to get bigger. And let's have here, insert a keyframe. And let's have it when it's here, it gets very small. So I'm going to drag this in this way, drag it in this way, drag it down a little, drag it up a little. And also, I'm going to change its color. So pick up the selection tool, make sure it's all highlighted. Come over here and let's make it yellow. Now, let's just test that for a minute. Control, test movie test. There's the button. When I scroll over it, it gets bigger. When I click on it, it turns yellow. Click on and off. See that? Okay. Now, let's say I wanted to make the button easier to hit. I want it to be real easy to hit. So come under Hit, right click, Insert Blank Keyframe. So it's a blank keyframe. I know my button's about here, so pick up the rectangle again. It doesn't matter what color I have. And I'm going to make it so that if I click anywhere in the bottom of the screen, so I'm going to do all of this like that. So that's going to be where my hit area is. That's so when I scroll over it, as soon as I scroll over any part of this lower section on the stage, the button's going to be activated. Control, test movie test. All right, come over here. Now watch, I'm nowhere near that button, but there's the hit area. See how it changed? And if I click here, it'll turn colors. That's this area here. As soon as I get on here, now that's something that if you wanted it to be, I really exaggerated it. I'm going to make it smaller. If I click on it, make it really small. And there it is there. See how close to it? I can make it very, 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 very small. And then you'd have to get on this very, very, very small part, the center of this. See, I'm just making it smaller, smaller, smaller. See where it is? Okay, let's test that. Control, test movie test. I can go here, nothing happens, but there it is. There's the hit area. Okay. So that gives you some idea the difference between a movie clip, a graphic, a button, and a drawing. Hope you learned something from this tutorial, and I hope you use what you learned.